Okay, fantastic. Who thought that we would open up a giving circle panel with Shaka Khan, especially one about giving circles in Europe? I welcome really everybody to this. I would say that must be a world premiere. I'm pretty sure there has not been an event on giving circles in Europe so far. So I'm really happy that everybody is here. And I think what we will try to grasp in the next 50 minutes is really what is happening in regards to giving circles in Europe. Some of it already happens for a long, long time, and some of it are newer developments. And it's about donor circles, it's about crowdfunding or collective giving. In the end, the core thing is that people come together to give together. And let's figure this out, what goes on in Europe. I'm really happy that we will go from Kipper Blakely from Social Investor Partners in Zurich to Craig Brown from 100 Men Who Care in Ireland, over to Eugenie Harvey, the Funding Network in London. And then we will go to Cornelius Nohl from Children for a Better World in Munich. And my name is Michael Alberg-Seberich from Wider Sense, and also from an initiative called the Living Room Donation, which is also a virtual giving circle back here in Germany. And I'm really glad to start right away. And I'm going to pass it on to Cornelius, because Cornelius has the youngest giving circle community because he works with children and youth. Cornelius, the floor is yours to explain to us a little bit what your giving circles are doing.
Many thanks, Michael, for the introduction and the invitation. I'm very happy to be here today. And yeah, I'm also very excited about what we will learn today from each other. So I'm delighted to talk about a special form of giving circles in Germany today. My name is Cornelius. I'm the executive director of the children's aid charity Children for a Better World. An important principle of our work is the participation of children in decision-making processes. So this is core to our organization. In doing so, we are inspired by the UN Convention on the Rights of Child, according to which children have a right to express their opinion and decide on issues that concern them. So that's a very important point for us. We developed and implement youth giving circles. We call them youth giving circles in here for more than 25 years now. So we brought forward a couple of years. We're doing now that ideas, that concepts, and we call them children advisory councils. In 6 cities in Germany, young people come together twice a year to decide on smaller children AIDS projects. They have a budget of 5,000 euros and decide on 3 to 5 proposals per meeting. The applications are submitted by local aid organizations, but also by organizations operating worldwide. And yeah, the partners we have, they are foundations. Many community foundations are interested in that kind of work and that kind of giving circles. That's not only a specific development in Germany, that there are more and more community foundations, and also companies are interested in that way of letting children participate, and also private donors and volunteers who are organizing these kind of circles. That's all in all, just in a nutshell, what we are doing. And Michael, probably the next question is, what's the most surprising thing?
Right, definitely. What has been the most surprising thing for you when it comes to working with children and youth?
Yeah, children and grown-ups argue very differently. And they come often to a similar conclusion, and that's the interesting thing when we talk about it. And the remarkable difference is, at least in my opinion, that children are resolute cosmopolitans. They do not see at all that a needy child in their neighborhood should be better cared for than a child in a distant country. And this is very, very interesting for the work we are doing, because we always have these discussions more like a small grant for a child in Africa or somewhere in the world, and how is it valued when it comes to a bigger grant we need to support a child or neighbor in Germany in a wealthy country. And this is a very interesting point, and this is the most surprising for me, that here's a big difference, that these young people are much more of a cosmopolitan perspective.
Well, yeah, I can imagine, and sitting in some of your youth giving circles, I've experienced that they also ask some of the more tougher questions, or Cornelius, than the adults.
Yeah, definitely, because I think the adults are more, they think more complex, and they have so much more experiences that it's sometimes hard for them to settle down to a certain point. Yeah. And it's for children, it's easier to come to the point and to ask the right questions. However, I don't want to value that. I think that the way adults are arguing is also in a way it's cool and it's good and it's consistent, and also children are doing that, but it's different, and that's really surprising, and that is what is motivating us to foster this kind of giving circles.
Great. Thank you very much, Cornelius, for that introduction into your world of giving circles. And I'm pretty sure if people in the audience that are listening in and watching us have questions, please feel free also to put them into the chat so that we can bring them up later on. And now I'm going to take it from Munich to London. And Eugenie, the funding network, I would say, is a very established collective giving format and invented in Europe. And tell us a little bit more about your work as CEO of that organization and what makes it so exciting and something that brings philanthropy to a different level, a more collective level.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everybody. It's a pleasure and delight to be taking part in this wonderful seminar, this summit from over here in the UK, and it's a particular joy to be included in a panel on European giving circles, because as you will all know, the UK's relationship to Europe has changed quite drastically in the last 12 months. But I am delighted to be here and delighted
we miss
to take
you.
part. Yeah, we miss you too. So the Funding Network is a small UK charity. We have been going for 19 years. We were founded back in 2002 by a Canadian art dealer, in fact, Frederick Mulder. And we organise live and now virtual crowdfunding events, giving circles, donor circle, whatever you want to call them, to raise money for other small to medium-sized charities working for social change. With our giving circle model, there is no minimum wealth requirement. There is no requirement to give even. Our events are open to everybody, and we really see ourselves as, I hope, democratizing philanthropy, making it accessible, making it something that people with fairly small amounts of disposable income, right up to large amounts, can take part in. Our members and donors are primarily professionals. I say to people when they say, oh, I don't know if I can come along and I'm not that wealthy, I say, well, can you afford dinner out at a restaurant with a friend? And they say, yes, I can. And I said, well, then in that case, you can afford to come and give at our giving circle, because that is the sort of entry level donation that people make. And of course, some make a lot more, but that is kind of the entry level. But again, there's no requirement that you have to even give that amount. We are formalized, so there's many different structures for giving circles. Some are informal and they meet in a neighborhood, as you all know, whereas we are quite formal. We have a set format. We have a small paid staff. We are constituted. We're registered with the UK Charity Commission, and we currently organise about 15 events a year, which raise anything from about £80,000 in total, down to at our smaller events more like 20,000. Across the year, we raise, about £600,000. So about $1 million, I think that probably is. We are funded in part by contributions from our members. We have a small membership. We also, anybody can come and give at our events, but we also have a membership, and we also take a small deduction on the funds we raise. So that's to give you a sense that we are a formal, structured, registered giving circle. Our format is a bit like a TED Talk. The charities that pitch, make a 6-minute pitch, are nominated and selected by our members. We have 3 charities at each event. They have 6 minutes to make a pitch. They get a little bell at 5 minutes. They need to wrap up at 6, and then they have a further 6 minutes for questions. And then a little bit like an option, we have what we call a pledging session. So after we've heard from each of the charities, one at a time, they've each had a chance for questions, the audience is invited to what we say pledge towards the funding targets for each of the charities. And they do that quite simply by raising their hand. Although now that we're working in the virtual format, they make their pledges in the chat. We also run an international program, which of course is very important to this discussion. And having had this success in the UK, we started to be approached about 10 years ago by philanthropy infrastructure organisations and community foundations across Europe. And we were asked to help them learn and adopt our model. And we've done that with great pleasure and now work with 20 or more country partners. I'll tell you who they are: Germany, Bulgaria, Poland, Georgia, Latvia, Albania. Georgia, I think my friends in Georgia might be on the call. Slovakia, Italy, Serbia. We have Romanian diaspora groups in Helsinki, Brussels, Milan, Barcelona. And a little further afield, we work with groups in Russia, Turkey, Palestine, Peru, Colombia, Australia, and New Zealand. I should say that there's only 4 of us. We're a really small team, but our network is powerful because of the quality of the partnerships that we have, and we're excited by that.
Okay, Eugenie.
Do you not want to know my most moving thing?
Yes, I want to know. This is why I wanted to jump in. What has been your most moving thing that happened in one of these events?
So I think, you know, the charities that present at our events, wherever they are astonishing. They're always fantastic people addressing extraordinary problems in innovative ways. And the moment I want to share, which was of many I could choose from, very moving, was an event organised by a Romanian diaspora group, and it was to raise money for a project to strengthen LGBT communities in Romania at a time when the government was being very regressive with its policies, was making it very uncomfortable for LGBT people in that country. So this was a project to strengthen that community. And when we got to the pledging, when people put their hands up to pledge an amount, after a little while, a woman stood up and she said, "I'd like to make an offer. I would like to give 10 euros as a match to any person who will put up their hand and say that they have been attracted to a person of the same sex." Not gay, but just recognizing that sexuality is a very broad spectrum. And do you know what? 60% of the people put their hand up as to demonstrate that I was one of them, have had, you know, a feeling or a sense of affiliation or something with someone of the same sex. And it was really moving. Wow. It created visibility. It was a powerful gesture of solidarity. And it raised, you know, a bit more money for the project. And that was really, really a wonderful moment. And I think that's the great thing about the Giving Circle. Probably the last thing I want to say is, you know, it's about the solidarity, about coming together around an issue, a problem, you know, values. And that is the great power of it. It's transformational. It's not transactional. Thank you, Michael.
Eugenie, and as you already saw in the chat, your colleagues from Georgia are there. They already said, "We're here." Okay, well, we're going to go from London now to the Alps, to a very different kind of giving circle, or giving circles, actually. Kipper, what kind of giving circles are you supporting, and how do they work?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. But first of all, thank you, Michael, and the great team from We Give Summit for organizing this session. It's also really interesting for me to hear from the other organizations. I've never had a chance to meet them, but I've heard a lot about them. So I think, as you said, Michael, this is truly a first to bring all the giving circles in Europe together. So as I said, we've been involved in sort of a different variant of the giving circle concept. We've launched and managed 2 giving circles that bring together ultra high net worth individuals, pooling their financial as well as non-financial support. So we're talking at the billionaire level. The first giving circle that we set up about 12 years ago was a very high-flying group. It had its inaugural meeting at the residence of a sitting monarch. The circle members included a former Secretary General of the United Nations and some of Europe's wealthiest individuals. It was sort of a giving circle on steroids, if you will. The group questioned the growing inequality in the world. This is right around the financial crisis. And to be honest, their roles within the system. Their ambitions were very bold, and I think as a consequence, the conversations tended to be very theoretical in nature, and at times, to be honest, it felt like we were playing God. We were focused in terms of projects on supporting paradigm shifting projects around the world. So, I was traveling accordingly around the world doing due diligence on projects. We built the group around a champion, sort of a magnet to draw in other high net worth individuals. This was great to build up the membership, but the giving circle quickly fell apart when this person dropped out for health reasons. I also think it was easier for the individuals to bow out because the goals were a bit lofty and the projects were so far away. So all in all, a bit intangible, if that's the one takeaway I could give from that. The second giving circle, though, has been a great success. 8 years now and going strong. So in Switzerland, as Michael knows, everything is small, and our giving circle is no exception. The circle is comprised of 7 individuals tackling things that they couldn't do on their own. And if successful, then if the pilot projects are successful, they could be of interest for others to support, such as the government. This giving circle is opposed to the first one, is focused on creating local impact and on learning from each other. And I think a few reasons why this has now lasted 8 years, has been going so strong. One, because it's not focused on one champion or founder. 2, we've brought in a rotating leadership system so that everyone gets the pleasure of leading, but also feels the pain of hurting the others, because it's sometimes quite difficult to get the momentum, to get the critical mass, and to get things moving forward. We also kept it more flexible and allowed more emergence. That is a more iterative strategy in the way we go forward. Priorities shift over time, especially in the last year. So we've tried to avoid being dogmatic about what we support and how we support it. And then also we're focused equally on learning as much as giving. And this group has created the safe space necessary and the time necessary to then reflect and learn.
Okay, well, thank you, Kipper. So is there one thing where you say you had a tremendous impact? Was that kind of a giving circle model?
I mean, there are several. I mean, on a very short example would be one project where, with a grant of 20,000 Swiss francs, we were able to attract a larger grant. That pilot project was successful, and they got a 500,000 Swiss franc grant, follow-up grant from the government. Another thing which just happened to be good timing, I don't want to say perfect timing, but they were supporting an initiative on migration, not only showing the benefits of immigration, but on showing the whole of immigration and emigration. And it happened to be just at the time in Europe when it became a very hot topic. So the projects that we were supporting happened to land in the public realm just at the right time for people to get educated about it.
Cool. Thank you very much, Kipper. Wow, these are cool stories, and you already get your fans in the on the chat. People say spot on and great learnings. So thank you very much, Kipper. And we're gonna move on from Switzerland to Ireland, where 100 men care. So Craig, what do these 100 men do in Ireland?
Well, let me give you a bit of an idea of the greater structure as well. Yeah. So our local chapter here is called 100 Men Who Give a Damn. And so I get to say a bad word on a chat here. So that's the overall organization, though, is called the 100 Who Care Alliance. So there are over 500 chapters globally in this alliance, mainly centered in Canada and America. As I'm sure you can hear from my accent, I'm not actually Irish. I moved here about 6 years ago from Canada, and I was a member there. So essentially, 100 Men Who Give a Damn is a bit like the television show Dragon's Den or Shark Tank for the Americans out there. So essentially what we do once a quarter, we get together and we invite 3 local Irish charities to come and deliver a timed 5-minute pitch. At the end of the 3rd pitch, we take a private vote, and here's where things get really exciting. Everyone writes a check for €100 to the winning charity, regardless of whether or not that's who they voted for. So on the night, the charity can go away with anywhere between sort of €7,000 and €10,000. So in the 5 years we've been in operation, I think we've raised in excess of €140,000 for local charities. As for the membership, they're mostly younger professionals. I think, they like the idea of having this night out where it's kind of gamified a bit, And for the charities, we just insist that they're registered Irish charities, that they've been in operation for more than 1 year. We don't really want startup charities. We're looking for proper governance. And they don't have to be headquartered in County Galway. They can be Irish charities, but as long as they have operations on the ground here, then we're happy enough for that. So we've been, like most other people, we've been Zooming it for the last year, but we're just sort of coming out of lockdown in Ireland now. So we're hoping our next event in August or September will be pressing bellies again, as they say.
Okay, well, thank you, Greg. What has been, doing this in Ireland, have there been challenges in transferring that idea, or did it come naturally?
There were a couple of cultural things. Canadians are on time for everything, and Irish don't, especially on the West Coast here. So I remember I held the very first event, and I had invited 60 people, and I figured, half of them will turn up. And I turned up to the venue. I was there very early, and I got to sort of 1:45, and there was nobody there. And then 10:02 and nobody there. But by the time it was 5 minutes to, I was checking my computer to make sure I'd sent out the right time. And at 6 o'clock, the first guy walked through the door, and he said, "Oh, am I the first here?" So just getting used to that cultural thing. I think the other big challenge I had is most of these chapters are started by people who have been entrenched in that specific business community for 20 or 30 years. I basically turned up here in September 2015, and I pitched to every single man I met for 3 months, and had the first event in February 2016. So the way that other chapters do it is they tend to get together a steering committee first, and then you invite 10 friends and you invite 10 friends. It's probably a bit of an easier way to do it.
Wow, amazing. Thank you very much. Well, you must have had quite some, that must have been quite some path shaping that you had to do and knocking on doors and talking to people. Amazing. So is there anything, what was doing this now, what has been the most fun for you?
You know what, the most fun is calling a charity, asking for the head of fundraising and asking if they'd like a 1 in 3 chance to win €10,000. That's the highlight of the whole event. And at this stage, they kind of all know who we are as well.
Yeah.
So that's good. We've had a couple of memorable winners as well. The very first one, there were 3 charities there. 2 of them were very well-known brands in this part of Ireland. And one of them nobody had ever heard of. It was a small school that supports children with autism, and they just needed some money for a playground. She was the only speaker who wasn't a professional pitcher. Yeah. And she won. She was ecstatic. So that was very good. A couple of years later, we also managed to save another children's charity that support kids with cancer, save them from actually going out of business. They were literally out of funds. And we got them over the hurdle. And then she said, the woman who ran that, she said, then things started to happen. It was like dominoes. We got this, we got that, and the other. But they just needed money for that sort of 2-month gap when they just didn't have any funds at all.
Wow, these are amazing stories. Thank you, Craig. And I can already see that Felix, who most of the people in this panel also know from the Dole Foundation in Germany, and also my co-initiator of the living room donation, is sharing all kinds of information on everybody who is in the who is on the panel. So that's really nice. Thank you, Felix, for this. And amazing. And thank you, Craig, one more time for sharing these experiences. And again, if you have questions, participants, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A function of Zoom to also raise your questions. Now I'm going to go back one more time to Eugenie. And Eugenie, why do people come to this funding network event? It's a little bit like Craig also said, these people show up, and what is their motivation? Is it fun, or what is it? What drives people to come?
I think it's a number of things, Michael. I think firstly, it's they increase their impact. And I would imagine, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the case for every giving circle, is when you give with others, your money goes further. We always say, you know, your money will never work as hard as it will with us. So I think that's the first thing. People are looking to get the leverage and maximize their impact. I think secondly, through our model and from what I've heard, all the models today, you know, you find really interesting charities that you wouldn't, and initiatives and opportunities that for whatever reason you wouldn't be able to find yourself. You don't have time, you don't have networks, you don't have confidence, and people come to us because we can help them connect with issues and causes that they wouldn't be able to find. They come to learn. I think that's been a theme we've talked about. You know, they come to learn about giving, they come to learn about projects, they come to you know, enhance their own understanding of issues and topics and all sorts of things. They come to us, I think, because it's a very transparent process. They get to hear from the person they're going to give money to. They get to ask questions, you know, and when you're giving away money at our level, well, I think at any level, but, you know, we always want to feel as confident that the money we're giving is going to safe hands, it's going to be well used. And at the end of the day, I think quite a lot of that opinion, that sense comes from a face-to-face encounter. We're very robust. You know, we treat people's money really well. We report very well. And, you know, those things really matter. And I think finally, as you say, it's very enjoyable. It's fun. It's uplifting. It's inspiring. People leave our events, you know, clapping each other on the back and wiping away tears and, you know, with new friends and new knowledge. And it's a really, you know, we don't want to sort of diminish the importance of what we're doing, because we deal with some incredibly serious issues and some people who have had the most harrowing experiences. So I don't want to diminish that for 1 second. That is at the heart of it. But this sense that we can participate in these problems and have a meaningful interaction and make a difference is incredibly uplifting. So those are the reasons I think people come to our events, and I suspect all the events we've heard about today.
Perfect. Thank you, Eugenie. That's really of help, and I think it really motivates. And somebody in the chat just raised the question how you can grow the movement overall in Europe, and so this is really, really helpful to really see what is possible, and maybe the others also can jump in on that question, what overall could help with growing that movement. What I think is everybody who's on this panel right now, we all have that as a vision, that there are more collective giving initiatives. So yeah, great. Kipper, well, your donors, and you already implied a little bit to this, what do they like about this collective initiative? Does it make it easier for them because they're more anonymous, or what is it that drives them that they find it interesting to get together? Because they could also say, I can do this by myself. Or,
exactly. You know, it's financially, they could probably individually each support the project on their own. It's more than financially, it's the connections and the other non-financial resources that have become so crucial to pushing some of these projects ahead. In terms of, you know, staying anonymous, most of them have their own foundations, and they're actually well known in the philanthropy space, but they came together in this group, in this giving circle, because they wanted to learn from each other. And as a group, they stay anonymous because the group, the giving circle, might be supporting initiatives, thematic areas that have nothing to do with their foundations. And it would confuse people in the media about why they're supporting something that they've never supported before. You know, they really appreciate learning from each other, even if it's a different thematic area that they're supporting as a giving circle. It's that learning from each other's experience to understand how the system works. They also appreciate having a safe space to discuss issues around philanthropy. You know, there are so many platforms out there for the executive leadership of foundations to meet and greet each other. But for this level, you know, the people with the financial resources behind the big foundations, there are very few local opportunities. And then one surprising thing, going back to your very first question to me, any surprises that came out of this? I mean, although Switzerland is an extremely small country, it must be said that we have distinct regions, and we also suffer from a cultural divide, although you can drive across the whole country in 3 hours. So it's been really nice, for example, for members from the German-speaking part to be able to get to know and learn from members from the French-speaking side of the country and vice versa.
Great, thank you, Kipper. Well, it's good to know that everybody seems to be, no matter where they're coming from and what the backgrounds are, that collective giving seems to make a lot of sense. Cornelius, there is a direct question to you already in the chat in regards to the age of the children and youth that are participating in the youth giving circles. Maybe you can answer that already, and whether do they all work together across the ages, or are they sorted by ages? Maybe you can jump in on that very quickly.
Yes. Well, the age is from 6 to 18, so it's a very broad group that comes together. And most of the young people are between 10 and 16. But it's very interesting that children, from the point on, they like to discuss things, to understand things, that they start in the giving circles, and that they are brought forward to a culture of discussion, and to think about problems they see, think about problems in their environment, in their direct environment, but also all over the world. So we sensitize them for these kind of problems, and I think this is one of the main points to it. And they are all together. It is not that we divide them in groups. They sit together on a table, and they learn from each other, and they learn to have respect to each other, and that also the youngers have something to say, and the youngers learn from the older how to argue and how to discuss topics. So that's very interesting, that all learn from each other, and that there's a great and tolerant atmosphere in which these discussions can happen.
Yeah, and well, as I said, sitting in some of these youth giving circles from your organization, I really have to say it's amazing how passionate these youngsters are and how they really argue for their causes. And I just imagine what kind of an effect that must have in the future on their character and on their experience of civil society. So
definitely. I think young people learn that they have a voice, that they can positively influence their environment, and that they can change things. And I think this is so important for each young people. And it's also part of becoming an adult. Yeah. And I think that's why everyone actually should be in that kind of, or in other contexts, which empower them to understand that they can change whatever they want to change.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you for that. I can just always encourage people to jump in there with the youngsters. And I know, Eugenie, you also, at least in the past, had a format for younger donors, and I'm pretty sure you still have it. I still remember seeing these movies where people would be sitting in pubs and have a lot of fun giving. Okay, well, Craig, in the end, did only your effort bring these 100 men together, or what else did it take so that there was that community in the end, where people said, yeah, we're going to do this collectively? And in addition, so is it, do the people in the end have arguments around where to give? How does that discussion process work?
Which charities to give to?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So each of our members, when they sign up, they have the opportunity to nominate 3 charities. And a month before each of our events, we literally pick the names of 3 charities out of a hat. And that's how we decide who gets to come. And then deciding where the money goes is decided by the votes on the night. It all goes to the one, to the majority winner. And there have been some close calls on who's won, but we've talked to the charities a number of times, and they've kind of said, we prefer the winner-take-all model because we can't do much with €2,000, but we can do quite a bit with 6 or 8 or 10. So there's not really any arguments, and it seems to be one of the things that the members really like about it. It's kind of this gamification of giving. In fact, the members don't even know who's going to be pitching until they turn up on the night. So it's all a big surprise. It's a bit like watching a television show, really.
Yeah, great. Wow, well, at one point I have to come and sit in. I want to see this. This is, it seems to be an amazing process. There's a question in the chat around, is that movement growing? And is there specific data? In regards to the data, I can only say there is the Global Giving Circle study that is also, I think, available also with the help of Philanthropy Together and so on. Where there is some data on Europe, but I at least do not know about systematic mapping of giving circles. We just published a study on giving circles in Germany at Wider Sense together with the Dole Foundation. But everybody in the panel, do you have a sense this is catching on? Do you, Craig, see right now in Ireland new giving circles everywhere?
We had another one start in Dublin just before the pandemic broke. So hopefully they'll get another event on the go here shortly. But we did get some national coverage not too long ago from RT, which is the national TV carrier here. And they did a nice piece, which has played a few times. So it's definitely brought us some new members and some interest in starting new chapters as well.
Okay. Well, Eugenie, you already talked about it is spreading all over the world, or Europe at least. How do you see that? Do you also see other forms of giving circles around you, that there is more talk about collective giving? And you have to turn on your microphone, the good old Zoom thing. We cannot hear you. Okay, I'm just gonna.
Oh, I think I'm okay now.
Yeah, you are.
Sorry, my husband rang me on my phone. I had to hang up. Just had a bit of a technical hitch. Michael, yes, I definitely think collective giving circles is growing across Europe. And it's such a great way for people to get involved in charitable giving for all the reasons we've talked about. You know, it's really accessible. I mean, not for the Billionaire Club is not accessible, but generally speaking, the sorts of circles that I run and I'm involved in, and I think that a lot that we've heard about today, you know, they're low barrier to entry, they're very social, there's low risk, and I think we're all increasingly seeing that, you know, we have to step up. We need civil society to be engaged, to be active, and getting involved through a giving circle is a fairly straightforward way. And I think the other thing that's really interesting is, you know, the community foundation movement, which again is very established in the US and Canada, that is really growing across Europe. It's very established in Germany too. I believe there's about 400 community foundations in Germany alone. And then the rest of Europe has, you know, about 400. So that's extraordinary that Germany's got so many, but there is an explosion and growth in the community foundation movement. And we sit very comfortably, our giving circle model, and I think other giving circle models potentially too, very comfortably within the context of a community foundation. So at the moment, we have giving circles using our model in about 60 European community foundations, which is, you know, terrific. We're very proud of that. But there's huge room for that to grow, and we're seeing a lot of demand. And so we're very pleased to be working, for example, with Mihaela Georgiou, who's on the call today, who's very closely involved with the growth of the community foundation movement across Europe and bringing those two things closer together, the giving circle and the community foundation. So yes, there's loads of growth and loads of opportunity. It's very exciting.
Thank you. And I guess, Cornelius, you would say the same thing, or because you also work a lot, at least with community foundations in Germany, and maybe you can also react to the other question raised in the chat already. What kind of issues are supported by the children and the youth that you work with on your youth giving circles?
Yes, definitely. These community funds are growing year by year. We could say also exploding. Many, I think, 10 years ago, there was very, very good development of these, and they get more and more professionalized, I believe, and that's why we get many questions on how they can implement young giving circles. So that's a very good trend and development, and we'd love to, of course, establish new giving circles for young people. And I think that will also be the future, and we'll also invest in that topic, and because for us it's part of our core, of our vision, and that's why it's very important to do so. So the projects the young people are funding, they are very, very different. There are many local projects, and these projects are with refugees or with old people, with poor people. So also the focus is, of course, on other children. That's a very important aspect, because children, of course, can understand the problems of other children much better because it's in their own perspective. And so we also always try to focus on these kind of funding projects. And on the other hand, we have international projects, and the topics are more or less the same. And of course, there are differences between the demands. So also we are supporting many projects abroad, in developing countries. So where we have, of course, poverty is a huge topic, but also conflicts and very special solutions to that.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Cornelius. And some questions now in the Q&A are already answered by itself. But Kipper, what are the topics? You already said migration was a big topic. Are there, could you cluster other topics that you have dealt with? Well,
we're certainly looking at climate justice right now, looking at supporting initiatives in the circular economy area. And then due to the pandemic, there's a very strong negative impact on single mothers in Switzerland, many of them juggling multiple jobs, not sure where, because of the different cantonal regulations and differences within Switzerland, where to apply for various forms of support for rent, health, etc. So we've supported 2 emergency relief funds in Switzerland across the country that help single mothers in Switzerland.
Cool, great, thank you. Craig, what are your topics? What people want to fund when they choose in the end for the charities?
Yeah, so we tell the charities, look, when you pitch, what we really want you pitching for is for a one-off project that has a clear start, finish, and end, ideally within 3 months, because we ask them to report back after 3 months as well. So it tends to be tangibles that are going to last a really long time. So for that first charity that won, they needed a new playground for their students who were children with autism, and they had to buy those soft mats that are really, really expensive. So that was quite tangible. We had a search and rescue charity that needed a new vehicle, a new emergency vehicle. There've been a few cars. Homeless charities, outfitting apartments, things like that. So they are tangibles. And when they report back, we tend to get photographs as well, which is really good, the before and after pictures. So that tends to be the sort of thing. And obviously it has to be something that's under about 10,000 euros. So so that's kind of it.
Thank you. Eugenie,
Michael, can I ask a question in the chat? Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. I want to say there was a very concrete question to you. Please feel free.
Thank you so much. So the question is, after the 3 charities have presented, do members pledge their donations to more than one? And the answer is yes, they do. We take them one at a time and we go through them, and people can pledge, and they can pledge multiple times. We will take their money as often as they choose to give it. And I wanted to encourage people, there's a couple of links in the chat to see very short, they're like 2-3 minute highlights films. First one is of our live event format, and the second is of the virtual event format. And you know, our model did translate very well to virtual, so please do have a look at that. And yes, people can choose it, can give any amount, upwards of £100 to each of the charities. They can give, and in the second round, we go around the pledging twice, actually. They can usually give a little bit less if they want to. Matching is a very frequent characteristic of our our pledging. So I'll give 500 if it's matched by other people in the audience. That's very energizing for the giving. So yeah, I hope that answers those questions.
Perfect. And there was another longer question in the chat or Q&A around how do I do this when my giving circle grows and I need to find a host or set up my own charity. And I think it was Alex who raised that question. Alex, I'm pretty sure the Philanthropy Together team can support you with a couple of ideas here, because there's a lot of work done on hosting giving circles also. And maybe in the end, often these are community foundations that help with hosting giving circles. So maybe that's an option also for you to explore, just on that side note. Last question to all 4 of you. And I will do a variation so that we can stay in time. So what is your 2026 weather forecast for giving circles in Europe? Craig?
2026, yeah, so 5 years from now. Well, for our area, we will probably triple the amount that we've raised. We're actually, there's a women's chapter starting on the cards for Galway at the moment. But I'd be surprised if there weren't, another 10 or so by then in Ireland, in the UK, and hopefully beyond as well.
Cool. Kipper, what is your weather forecast? Is it going to be stormy or is it going to be sunny?
I have a positive outlook. I think there are going to be a growing number of giving circles in Europe. I think also there's going to be more redistribution of power to the grantees. There's a definite power dynamic in giving, whether you're the Gates Foundation or a local giving circle supporting your zoo. Those giving the money typically have the power. So I think there's going to be a shift, a redistribution in terms of how the money is budgeted, and getting the say of the grantees, the recipients themselves.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Cornelius, how is your weather forecast? More youth giving circles?
Definitely. So the weather is fine in Europe, and young people are systematically involved in decision-making processes in all different levels. So it's not only in giving circles, it's that they can participate, that they have a voice, and that they can be part of a community and a society in which their vote counts.
Thank you. Eugenie, you just have to say now 2 words about the weather.
It's going to be terrific. Sunshine all the way. Very exciting times ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I can only underline that because in addition to everything said, for instance, in the German-speaking countries, we will have a launchpad giving circles based on Philanthropy Together's launchpad starting in October of this year. And we're really excited about that, to use that also as one of the tools to strengthen the giving circle movement in all its variety of forms. So please also feel free to get in touch on that. And the same is true for the various virtual formats that we see developed out of the pandemic. That also seems to be an interesting experimental ground. I want to say thank you to Craig, to Kipper, to Eugenie, to Cornelius. This was great. I also want to say thank you to everybody out there asking questions, to the amazing team from the We Give Summit. I think at least the panelists learned a lot about technology and how to do this. And so it was really, really amazing. Thank you very much. And there will be more. The next summit, there will be 3 panels on Europe, I'm pretty sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye. And please also answer the survey for the summit. Thanks.